Good morning. We are super excited today to speak to Gemma Hathaway, aka the Triathlon Girl. She is a Team GB athlete and mum to 10-month-old baby Jessica, and she is going to talk to us about her return to training and how she's balancing that with being a mum and getting back into the more intense training and her challenges, and as well as answering all the questions that we've received. So thank you so much for sending them in. I hope that this is going to be useful. Hi.
Hello.
Obviously had a little internet dropout just as I was trying to invite you, so apologies for the
Oh
delay.
no, no worries.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. It's great.
Well, it's we've had loads of questions for you from people wanting to get your advice, but maybe if to start with, you can tell us a bit about what you do and how you're adapting that since having a baby and what you're trying to get back to, and yes, and any challenges or inspiration you might have.
Okay, so I've been doing triathlon for about 7, 8 years now. Managed to get myself onto the GB age group team about 4 years ago. So I've done 2 European championships and 1 World Championships to date, which was great. And as you can imagine, it takes a lot of time and commitment and dedication really to kind of get to that level. But I absolutely loved it and still love it and do want to get back to there
You
sort
never
of
thought, oh, well, I'll just take this as a
eventually.
reason to stop.
No, exactly. So it was a decision to make to sort of hopefully have a baby and take a break from that kind of level of triathlon for a little bit. So I did my last World Championships I'm so confused with years because of all this lockdown and everything, 2019. Then I fell pregnant and had Jessica in May 2020.
It's actually quite good timing.
Yeah, so I don't actually think I've missed any races, certainly not any kind of GB age group level races at all through the pandemic. So I kind of, feel from a selfish point of view, glad that kind of it's all happened at this time for me because I've not missed out on too much. Obviously very, very sad with everything else going on. But so then I've had Jessica, started to want to get back to training. And initially, I guess I want to do a triathlon this year in my head, certainly not at the highest level that I got to, but I thought that I'd be doing a few races. And that was sort of why I began training. And to be honest, it was unnecessary pressure. I was like, I don't need this pressure now. Actually, can I just train to help myself recover from birth and to make myself feel good and to kind of give me my little bit of me time. So actually training sort of quickly went from long-term focus of doing a triathlon to actually let's just look at myself as a blank piece of paper. What do I want my fitness to get to, and actually just train to recover from birth and get back to a good level of sort of all-round fitness. I've kind of done that, and actually now in the last sort of couple of weeks I'm again now thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to do a triathlon as soon as I can.
Well, I think it's quite interesting how many people, want to like get back to their pre-baby body or whatever as the goal, and then realize that actually you need to rebuild your body and feel strong and healthy and fit, and that you can pick up your baby and not it's just the blank piece of paper analogy is really interesting because you see it we get so many people contact us saying, oh, I'm worried about losing my body, and think, well, just think of it as change and
Yeah.
where do you want to get to, and it's a much healthier because then you don't look at your body as like an enemy, as something to not celebrate the fact that you actually made a baby. It's quite a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah, I think to begin with, I was definitely thinking, what do I need to do to get back to how I was before pregnancy? But now I've sort of done 9, 10 months of good training. I'm not sure if I ever will get back. You know, I'm still quite early in the post pregnancy, but
Mm.
yeah, I don't know if there is sort of permanent change or actually it takes like years. It's certainly not a kind of few months thing to kind of get back to where I was. I mean, I almost feel back, but I just think it's unrealistic given all the change your body's gone through that actually you can get back to exactly how you were before you were pregnant.
Plus the fact that you aren't sleeping for 8 hours straight, or you don't have any window, your optimum time when you might be fueled and rested, and that might not be when the baby's napping. So
Yeah.
you might not have quite the same flexibility that you had beforehand. I mean, that's certainly time is the biggest pressure.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and yeah, you only need a run of like teething and really broken night's sleep, and your energy is down, and then you can't just like train through it when you're so depleted.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference. I think before I was pregnant, if you were just tired from training or work or just low energy, you'd be like, no, I'm an athlete, and these are the times where I've got to just push through. But actually I'm like, no, I'm just not going to train that day, which I never would have
Yeah,
dreamed of saying before. But what's the point really? I need to make sure I've got my energy for Jessica.
and to not start to resent the training.
Yeah, exactly that. And I don't think I have, and I do it because I love it. I think if I was ever having to force myself to do it, I don't think that I would. But I've exercised I have one rest day a week, but apart from that, I've always exercised for as long as I can remember. So yeah, I do it because I want to do it and it makes me feel good.
Well, which is the most healthiest place to be in it.
Yeah.
So, have you, when you look at the biggest challenges you have, what's been the hardest part of, like, especially being a triathlete? So you're not even just, oh, I just go to the gym and hit the weights or whatever. You've got such a lot to balance and contend with.
Yeah.
How do you make it work, and what's the biggest challenge for you?
Um, oh, good question. Definitely time. So I used to train twice a day, most days, and really long sessions at the weekend. That's just not feasible anymore. That time doesn't exist. So it's okay. I've got roughly an hour a day. At the weekends when my husband's around, I might have a couple of hours. So it's just then trying to be clever with your time. And actually I find when I've got that time, I'm sort of straight on it. There's no faffing. I kind of plan what I'm doing and I get on it because I know I've got to get it done because I need to be back. So definitely not having the time available that I had before, but how can I still make good fitness gains with that less time that I have? So I've sort of tried out different things at various stages post birth to try and sort of work that out, and some haven't worked, and then I've sort of had 2-3 weeks where I've not really achieved much in my training, so I was like, I could scrap that method doesn't work. And it's just it's a bit of trial and error. So I think that's the kind of hardest sort of thing to get me back where I want to be. But I guess the kind of mental side of not being as fit as I was, sort of as stereotyping, but as a triathlete, and certainly at my level, you know what your heart rate's normally at and your times are normally at and the type of sessions you normally do. And I am so far off of that. And I knew I would be, and it's for an absolute amazing cause, don't get me wrong. But it's just dealing with that, I guess. Sort of with returning to running has probably been the hardest sport for me to get back to post birth. And it's really, really upset me and frustrated me at times where I was. And then I managed to get myself to a good place. And I was coming back from a run and saying to my husband, I just did a walk run and covered 5K in 40 minutes. And I was genuinely really pleased. And then I thought, I'm pleased about that. Like, I used to only be happy if I was sort of doing 20-minute 5Ks. And all of a sudden your expectations just have to change, really. And they didn't change quickly. It took me time, but I think I'm in a good place now with it.
And to be able to celebrate the wins that you're having now, rather than just being as a point of comparison to where you were previously.
Yeah, I mean, I've stopped comparing. It's just not even comparable anymore.
So one of the questions actually that we've received was, what would be your advice on training for your first postnatal 10K? So how did you get back into doing a five, getting back to this place where you were pleased with your results? And because running is always it's obviously gives you such a lot of pressure on pelvic floor, and making sure that your core's recovered properly. So how did you get to being able to do getting back to running in a way that felt comfortable?
So my first sort of, as you sort of said there, with the pelvic floor and the core, straight away that's what I got working on post birth. It was pelvic floor was really actually all I did for about 6 weeks. I didn't really do much else, and then I had my 6-week check at the doctors, and then I started working on my core. So my background is I'm an accredited strength and conditioning coach, so certainly nothing postnatal, but I know a lot about training and how the body works. I studied sports science at university, and so I was just sort of applying all that knowledge that I knew to me with a little bit of reading around sort of post birth recovery. So yeah, I did a lot of core. It shocked me at first how, I mean, I'm assuming everyone's different, but from the birth I had, my brain couldn't connect with my core. So I was doing like the most basic core exercises I would ever prescribe, but I just couldn't feel my core, and my brain was telling my core to activate. But it was a really weird experience, I guess, maybe unless you have an experience that you don't really understand what I'm saying. So I knew I had to work on that before I was even going to run. Previously I've had various injuries running, and a lot of it all came down to not a strong enough core. So I knew that had to be good. So pelvic floor, core. Then I started a walk run program, your kind of typical sort of couch to 5K type-ish program. Again, I thought because I'd run before, I'd done so much pelvic floor during pregnancy, and my pelvic floor and core work I'd done since second birth, I thought that walk run then would be fine. But my pelvic floor apparently still wasn't ready, and that was about...
I just said no.
No, that was about 5 months after birth, and
that must have been quite challenging for you to be like, I'm doing everything right. Why?
Yeah, and I did end up going to a women's pelvic health physio, which someone had recommended, because I was convinced that I was doing everything right, but I was still having problems running. So I got all checked out, and even she was like, yeah, like best core I've seen postnatally, you know what you're doing with your pelvic floor. I think it's just going to take more time. I was like, okay, this is taking longer than I sort of thought, but I sort of persevered with it. And if I'm honest, I was probably trying to run too fast, too far, too soon, even though in relative terms in my world it was very little. But I think post-birth, 5 months post-birth, it was probably still too much. But the athlete that I am, I was convinced that I was, should be able to do this. And still was getting problems with my pelvic floor, which was a massive mental challenge. Went back to the pelvic health physio. I actually spoke to my coach, spoke to a few other sort of mums who do some running, and eventually kind of found something that worked for me. So I ran a little slower. I didn't run for so long. I broke it down into intervals. I started a kind of 1 minute run, 1 minute walk, and then that went to 2 minutes run, 1 minute walk, and kind of built it up. I was also finding that my strength work that I was doing, because my pelvic floor was fine with all my weights and everything, was actually putting quite a lot of strain on my pelvic floor. So my pelvic floor was actually fatigued going into a run. So then it wasn't helping me out in my run. So then had to it was like a jigsaw of fitting in all my sessions in a week, to try and get my pelvic floor in the freshest, strongest place it could be to withstand a run. And eventually I got there, and maybe if I'd asked for some more help sooner, I could have got there sooner, but I very much was my sort of own little experiment that kind of worked it all out. together. And even now I'm still walk running, so that's what I'm finding is working for me. Can't run in the evening, pelvic floor's too tired by then. So running in the mornings, I'm up to about 4 minutes run, 1 minute walk. But getting
So
that to kind of 8, 9, 10K.
big jumps.
Yeah. And I'm enjoying it again. I mean, there was a time when I was returning to running, I came back and I actually said the words, "That's it, I'm not running again." It was really breaking me down mentally, and I just couldn't.
It's not a good place to be if fitness, and especially running, can be such a joy, but you don't.
Yeah.
If it makes you feel terrible,
Yeah, exactly.
That's so you'd recommend lots of slow and steady build up.
Yeah.
And and running in the mornings.
Yeah, and then eventually
don't do a heavy weight session beforehand.
No, don't do heavy weights. That's a stupid idea. And then eventually you're to get up to your 10K, you would want to get to sort of a 30-40 minute steady continuous run, with some cross training in there, some swimming, some cycling to sort of build up that aerobic base. And then beyond that, if you're kind of sort of fully recovered from birth and you've got that good aerobic base, then I would treat you like sort of any other athlete, and you would put into kind of bit of sort of intervals with a bit more speed work in there as well.
That's really, really helpful. Thank you, because it's an actionable plan alongside just do pelvic floors, which is it's such an easy go-to.
Yeah.
And so you waited for 6 weeks post delivery before you did your pelvic floor work for the first 6 weeks, and then what did you do? So in terms of getting back into doing any of the strength training and swimming and the other aspects, how long did you wait until post-delivery?
So I got to 6 weeks, and then I spent probably a couple of weeks just doing more sort of Pilates type activities. And then I think that timed with pools reopening after a lockdown. So I was like, perfect.
That's handy.
Went back swimming and cycling actually at the same time. As well as then probably by about 8 weeks, I was doing strength, but it was all body weight. So really when I started strength, it was body weight resistance bands for sort of a couple of months. And then I got up to some sort of light med balls and dumbbells, and same with swimming and cycling. It was really short, sort of 30-40 minutes, really slow, easy, low level work, and then just sort of built up the time really.
And did you enjoy those workouts, or did it feel a bit like it was a medicinal recovery piece, or could you find enjoyment in them?
I enjoyed it. I was glad to get back. I think the first couple are always going to be a shock, like, whoa, I'm really unfit. When did it ever feel this hard? But once that was kind of over, and I did really enjoy it. Sort of that feeling afterwards, you can't beat it really. And I kind of felt if I just had that half an hour, 40 minutes to me, like the rest of the day, I was like invincible. Like anything Jessica chucked at me, like I could deal with.
Yeah, some time out and just focusing on people. It's so easy to overlook the mental benefits of exercise alongside just like the physical and the aesthetic benefits.
Yeah, definitely. The mental thing's been a huge thing post-birth for me with the exercise.
Yeah. Those babies, yeah, it's wonderful, but it is a shock.
Yeah.
Every baby's different. So it's not even like you can prepare with another one.
Yeah, yeah.
And did being fit help you with your labour?
I think so. I've obviously got nothing really to compare it to. I remember the midwife saying something like, no one pushes a baby out that quick and we can tell you work out, or something like that. It was quite a complicated labour, but yeah, I kind of, again, maybe more mentally, I just kind of kept going and dealt with it really.
It was like another competition to get through.
Almost.
And have you breastfed Jessica, and has that had any impact on your training?
Yeah, so I've breastfed Jessica from the start exclusively, and still am now, although she eats like a horse with her real food, so there's not much going on at the minute. I guess really the two things would just be the timing. So I tended to feed her and then exercise straight away if I could, because then I knew that she was going to be okay for at least half an hour. I mean, in the early days, it's, you know, every half an hour it almost felt like, but I knew that it would just give me that bit of time to get it done. And then also sort of as things progressed, it was then just more comfortable for me to exercise after I fed her.
They're weighty, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely, with the running and the swimming as well, to be fair. So yeah, that would be the only thing. And hydration and food. I mean, I don't really know enough science behind the breastfeeding, but certainly I was always thirsty and always hungry in the early days. And then add in an exercise session, I was then drinking even more and eating even more. So yeah, I think if you get your nutrition right, and then sort of for comfort and logistics, train just after, that's what worked for me. And I didn't have any other problems really.
And also, if you can express and give it to somebody else to do, this was my top breastfeeding exercise tip from the first time round, because it's sometimes you just need that extra time. And if the kid's not playing ball, if you're able to express, it makes a bit of a difference.
Yes, I did do that.
A bit more flexibility
for the evening. So again, when she started a bit more routine, was feeding less, my husband would give her an express bottle in the evening, which meant I kind of could forget about feeding her as of about sort of 6 p.m. and then would have a couple of hours of sort of my time if I needed to exercise.
And did all of the things that you've done with the pelvic floor and then building up with the body weight resistance training and resistance bands, and was this something that you pre-planned when you were pregnant, that you kind of thought this is what you would do? Or obviously you've mentioned that you thought you'd be running a lot faster. Then they went to plan, but was this something that you kind of mapped out for yourself, or was it just a matter of like wait and see how you felt once you got there?
Yeah, it was a wait and see. I kind of, you know, always hoped that birth would be not complicated and I would sort of get straight back into it, but I always went in with, you just don't know what's going to happen, and I didn't know how I was going to feel or how she was going to be, so I didn't actually plan anything. I knew I was going to take it slower than I would have wanted, and I said to my husband, like, can you like remind me that I've said that, like, so I was seeing it as I did train in pregnancy but not much to maintain fitness, so I knew that, you know, I was that blank piece of paper, so the slower I built it up, the kind of better. So I didn't have a plan, but I guess what I started to do when I sort of got back into it about 6 weeks was I wrote myself maybe about 10 different little workouts. I call it like a buffet of training plans. And then depending on how I felt that day or the time I had available, I would just go, oh yeah, I just feel like some core today. And I'll pick out a core program, and it was there written in front, and I would do it.
Just follow it.
Yeah, so I had a session plan, but I didn't have I'm going to do this on this day of the week, that on that day, and this week I'm going to do this, and the following week I'm going to do that. It was a lot more flexible, and it's probably only been the last couple of months I've got back to a structured training plan as I would know it. And
is that with a coach or with yourself, or
with myself? So yeah, I have a coach that I sort of see sporadically and talk to quite a bit and sort of bounce ideas off each other, and he sort of looks more at my sort of technique and things like that, but actually my kind of day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month plans, I've always written myself.
Which is handy.
Yeah. Although I was thinking, I don't know now, I've obviously got less time, if I should just hand that over to a coach as well, and it'll give me one less thing to have to do or think about, and I'll just follow what they say, but we'll see.
Follow your instructions.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's always a bit tricky then if they haven't necessarily know what things look like post-birth, if they've any of that consideration, or if you get to the point where it becomes less of a concern.
Yeah, I think sort of post-birth, apart from my pelvic floor when I run, I think everything else I feel like is not normal, that's not the right word, but I don't think anyone would need to take into any other considerations.
Oh, that's a very impressive place to get to.
It's been hard work.
Yeah. And it doesn't, yes. It's the fact that it's not one and done. You don't fix it and then that's it. You've got to keep being aware of it and keep building on that foundation. And do you, was there any, you obviously said you write your own programs from your buffet of programs, but is there any classes that you recommend if you don't, we had one of the questions we had is someone who doesn't like training at home by themselves, but what kind of classes you might recommend to get back into it and to have a bit of community with it as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not my thing, classes. As a coach, I don't really take classes and I've never sort of really been to them. But I'd say make sure that they're fully qualified postnatally, kind of in training in that area. Whatever class you go to, definitely check that out with the instructor. I know one of my friends went to a buggy fit class, which she almost persuaded me to go to, but then at the last minute I chickened out. But it looked really great. Is that the mums came with the babies in the pram, and it was an outdoor class, and it was all postnatal friendly, but very relaxed. If the baby needed feeding, you would just stop and feed the baby, or needed changing, or they needed rocking.
Sometimes it's nice just to make friends that way, like mum
Yeah,
friends if you
yeah,
don't have money.
definitely. It's a nice way to kind of get back into it as well. So yeah, that would be my answer to that one.
And you mentioned the style of running that you did was similar to like the Couch to 5K program. Did you follow that, or did you just know that it's kind of got synergy?
Yeah, I just know that it's got synergy. I have a few friends that have babies at a similar time that have followed the Couch to 5K, which has been great for them. But again, I kind of know my body and have my knowledge, and it was very similar. But I just sort of did it my way.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just nice to have someone telling you what to do, but if you don't need to be told what to do, it's a bit of a pointless exercise. Or
Yeah, yeah.
follow what feels right for you. And did you? So, what are your goals now? Do you think you'll be racing this year?
Yeah.
What kind of, how long do you think it will be before you, what are your
I would
aims?
like to race this year. I haven't actually looked into if there's many races on. I know they started putting them on again, and then they sort of cancelled them again, all because of COVID. So potentially sort of August, September time, that'll be the end of the triathlon season. I would like to race again, but more just sort of a local level. I wouldn't be trying to go to any kind of GB team qualifier races or anything like that, because I just know I'm not at that level, and I didn't start at that level, and I know that I just enjoy triathlon and I enjoy racing and the experience. So I would think by September I would definitely be able to start in the lake and cross the finish line with a run. I have no idea with what sort of speed. A lot of my work has just been sort of low level continuous stuff, but that's going to build up a really, really good endurance base. So I'm sure I'll be able to complete it, and then maybe see where my next year takes me. Typically then next year you would have GB qualifying races in sort of May, June, July time. If I know I'm getting faster, I'd be tempted to put myself forward and see how I get on.
And yeah, I guess if it feels right for you and you're enjoying it.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. I only ever really did triathlon as a hobby, and I enjoyed it, and I happened to get fast enough times that were good enough for the team. And I think the minute it becomes, I resent the training, or it stresses me out too much trying to manage work and Jessica and training, I just won't do it really. It's no longer the top of my list of things to do now Jessica's here. So yeah, if I was fortunate enough to do it, I would go for it, but I'm certainly not putting any pressure on myself.
Well, and yeah, fitness should always be enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, it's been so incredibly helpful. Thank you. We've got so many really interesting, actionable points from our chat. So we will obviously our interview will be on Instagram.
Great.
That'll be safe there. But we will pop this up as a magazine article on the website as well, so people can take your advice from a page and refer back to it if they're not online or whatever. So really, really appreciate your insight.
That's great. No, I feel I've just talked and talked and talked and talked, but as long as some people can pick out some good points that can help them, that's great.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
That's great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.